Hello everyone, I'm Gary Waterman. It's the 14th of February 2025. I was in the police in the United Kingdom for 18 years. And what I'm going to do in this video is just summarise what's happened for me over the last 2.5 years and provide a potential theory in relation to all of this. And of course it is subject to change because as I acquire more evidence, which is on a daily basis, the perception of what could be happening and the motives behind everything happening can change. And I'm looking at all of the evidence that I have at the moment and making a possible theory in relation to it. And the reason I'm doing this video now without a document in front of me is because I'm building a document on this, but it's going to take time. But Donald Trump has increased the rhetoric, the escalatory rhetoric surrounding Israel. And that's because he made a comment a few days ago that if all of the hostages are not released by Hamas by 12 o'clock tomorrow, Saturday, the 15th, then all hell will be unleashed. Now, these specific words were used by him repeatedly. He used them previously when he was threatening this if the hostages were not released previously. And he's made it again more recently and set a deadline. So I think it's important that I do this video to make people understand what is very likely really going on. So I'm going to start with me going back to where this started, or where my life began really, and just trying to summarise from there. So I was born in Kent in 1977. Okay, and I was born to a father who was a carpenter, and my mother and father separated when they were 11 years old, and I ended up going and living with my father. And I'd been told that my dad was from an adoptive family and that his auntie was actually his real mother, but he was led to believe it was his auntie. And I heard some time ago that the adoptive family had associated with the Kray twins. Now, those of you who don't know who the Kray twins are, they're a very infamous two brothers, obviously, who were involved in major corruption, laundering, racketeering, murdering. Well, it's like gangsters, I suppose, if you want to call it that. And also had international links, my understanding is, but also links to the royal family, potentially. And I've now more recently found connections to the Fleming family and to Kent, where I'm from. Some very relevant connections, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a minute. So anyway, so I worked with my dad for a while. Okay, he wanted me to take over his business. It wasn't for me. Didn't enjoy it. So I went into security initially, and then I joined the police in 2000. And that was obviously in Kent Police. And I worked from Maidstone Police Station, which is the main police station for Kent. I then decided to transfer to Dorset. That was in 2006. And I had absolutely no connections down there. I didn't know anybody. I just literally wanted to live in another part of the country. I'd been down there a couple of times, quite liked it. In fact, prior to that, I had actually applied for Devon and Cornwall Police, but I forgot to put a bit of paperwork in. So I then went for Dorset afterwards, and I got the job and transferred down there. So I transferred down in 2006, initially rented, and I became friendly with people on my squad, associated with them, one of them being Jock Condon, who I later found out and suspect was connected or related to Lord Condon, who was the Chief Constable of the Metropolitan Police. I later found out via the Companies House records that Lord Condon was connected to, among other companies, Group 4 Security, which was a fraudulent entity company, a criminal company, and also BAE Systems, which is the UK's largest defence contractor. Anyway, so I was socialising with this group. The sergeants on my group were Ben Pope, there was Anna Harvey, and there was also Simon Huxter, who was the sergeants there. Anyway, in 2007, I purchased a flat within a building called Exbourne Manor, and there was a freehold company started in relation to that building. And I had very little to do with the actual setting up of the company. That was by other people. Marcia Lynch, I believe, was somebody, Diana Betts, Anthony DeRaya, and some others. I had little involvement. One of the reasons being because I was working shift work and I couldn't participate a lot in it. And I presumed it was a legal, lawful entity company. I had no reason to believe anything else. Now, I actually became a director for that company in 2009. with the intention of believing that it would be beneficial to become a share of the freeholder, because the property becomes more saleable, potentially becomes more valuable when it is sold, etc. And also you have the ability to have a say in how the building is managed, generally, if you're share of the freehold. Again, presuming it was completely lawful, and I paid to actually become a director within this company and share of the freehold. So then in 2010, I was fortunate enough to move out of the property. But prior to this, in 2007, I had been introduced to my current wife, Lisa Waterman, by Ben Pope, who she had babysat for. She came out on an observer patrol, and that's how we met, and we ended up getting together. And we didn't marry until 2019, because I was, quite avert to marriage initially, because my parents separated when I was 11, and it had quite an impact on me at that age. So anyway, we moved out in 2010. I was fortunate enough to rent the flat, and then for one reason or another we moved back in 2000, and I think it was 20, and there was a roofing project done on the building, and it was a very expensive roofing project, and there'd been problems with the roof and leaking within my flat. So I was liaising with the management company, and we were employing a company called Owens and Porter. And I suddenly found it difficult to have contact with them. In fact, the agent disappeared completely, and I couldn't contact him for weeks. So this prompted me to want to look at our accounts. I was a director. I was entitled to look at the accounts. I'd never seen them. And bearing in mind, this was now 2021/2022. And I'd never actually seen the bank accounts, only typed up figures sent to me every now and then by the acting chairman or the management company, the acting chairman being Anthony Roberts. So on the 8th of August 2023, I approached Anthony Roberts at his flat, and I asked to look at the bank documents for our company. He was the acting chairman, so I thought I'll go and ask him. It was clear he didn't want me to, and I got that feeling previously when I've mentioned it, and he became very angry at me, and he resigned a few days later on the 13th of July 2022. Now, little to know, 2 days prior to that, the Georgia Guidestones, which are a set of stones that have been set up in America as almost the equivalent of Stonehenge, but in America, were destroyed. Okay, were damaged and destroyed. And I didn't realise the relevance of this at the time until later. I found connections to Exbourne Manor from the research of the Guidestones. And those Guidestones were linked to an apocalyptic event. So they were put there to represent a potential upcoming nuclear disaster or something similar, and it had an inscription on there that the population should be kept to under 500 million. Anyway, so this happened around the same time that Tony Roberts resigned. Also, I found out later that Elon Musk's brother had purchased a drone company around that time, which becomes relevant to what we're talking about later. So, of course, this resignation caused me to have alarm bells ringing in my head, and this triggered everything for me, the investigation, and I became completely motivated to try and find out what had been going on, not realising where it was going to lead. So I almost became the acting chairman, rallying the other directors together, and a meeting was arranged to go and speak to Stephen Owens of the management company, and he refused to even speak to me, okay, and resigned, provided his resignation for the company Owens and Porter there and then on the spot. So, of course, this raised serious concerns for me. Now, there were serious breaches of fire safety regulations within the building I didn't know about. They hadn't had a fire risk assessment since 2017, which was when the Glenfell Tower was one of the largest, most dangerous, deadly fires in the United Kingdom, which, again, I believe is all connected to this. So, anyway, they resigned, of course. Alarm bells rang. I then rallied everyone around, trying to find out what had been going on, made various inquiries, found out that other people appeared to be implicated within the company, tried to remove them in meetings, others kept them on, and there was just more and more evidence being acquired continuously. And eventually I found out that there were two sets of accounts. One of them suggested or showed that there was over £167,000 missing in payments from others into the building, which meant I'd been defrauded. The other set of accounts were fraudulent documents, so they were misaligned, they were not dates in amount columns, amounts in date columns, etc. So this was all reported to the relevant organisations, including my previous police force, Dorset, that I had resigned from in 2018. Okay, so and this was, didn't realise it's actually connected to this at the time. I left because 20,000 police officers have been reduced. The numbers have been reduced by that amount by Theresa May, and various police stations were being closed, and we could not do our job. So I left the job because it just was clear that my heart wasn't in the job anymore. We were being led to believe that we should look for evidence not to investigate a crime rather than investigate it. So my heart was not in the job. So this investigation's going on. It's clear that Dorset Police aren't investigating it correctly. Initially, they confirm there's fraud within the information I'm providing. They then refuse later to even acknowledge they'd said that. They also then end up providing 2 emails inadvertently confirming that they're allowing forged bank documents to be produced by the bank and used in circulation. This was after I'd made inquiries with Lloyds Bank, which pertained to the forged bank documents that I had. The Serious Fraud Office and Independent Office for Police Conduct were contacted by me, and I escalated it to them. They refused to intervene. I then received an email from... so the Fleming family were brought into the company, and I don't think they were actually part of the company until that point, but they tried to make me believe that they had been, and I suspect they were panicking and brought them in because they were key figures in relation to this fraud, and they were connected to a church network in all of this. And they came in, and John Fleming provided an email as they were making moves to remove me as a director for refusing to use the forged bank documents to file the accounts. And on that email, it was clear he'd been leaked information from Dorset Police with information only they knew. So I knew the police were involved. Also, the £167,000 that was missing, a large portion of that was from De Reya connections within my company. And the officer overseeing the department, the Economic Crime Unit in Dorset Police, was Sam De Reya, the same surname. She was also a tactical firearms commander for Dorset Police at the time, and they later moved her, which again highlighted obviously the relevance of all of this. They also moved the Chief Constable Scott Chilton. Various other moves were made as the inquiries escalated with me. So it's very clear that this was huge. So I escalated this to the Home Office. They refused to intervene. And tried to ensure that the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office deal with the investigation. Now, this was after I'd already found evidence linking the Police and Crime Commissioner, David Sidgwick, to Exbourne Manor through the company's house records. So clearly it would not be an independent investigation, and yet they insisted that. So I then knew at that point, this is now government fraud. I looked into it even more and found out what the real issue was that the government forging company incorporations, registers on the register, and also the incorporation documents, creating duplicate records to try and hide the fraud, etc., etc. Massive international government fraud, and it wasn't just the United Kingdom. I then found connections to Elon Musk, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, international child trafficking via specific cases of child abuse, such as apparent mass murder of children on the Isle of Jersey, linking into all of this. The Hampstead Child Abuse Inquiry via Ricky Dearman, all links back in, etc. So it's very clearly a huge international, probably, well, it is by far the largest international fraud ever. It's worth trillions of pounds. Multi-government organisations are involved right around the world. The FBI, the intelligence agencies, multiple politicians, the presidents, prime ministers, right across the world. Russian government all linked in. Russia and Ukraine working in collaboration in relation to the theatre of the war with the Fleming family. Established that the Fleming family were linked to JP Morgan, international fraud via the banks, international fraud via the energy industry and Tesla, who was financed by JP Morgan, international pharmaceutical scandals via Ian Alexander Fleming, who introduced the penicillin. So it's literally the biggest thing that's happened to humanity in a very long time. And because it's criminal, of course, it can't carry on. By its very nature, it's criminal. Its very nature, it creates victims. It exploits and victimizes the most innocent of all. But as things progressed, it was clear that it was linked to not only child trafficking, but to key religious figures. So the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Vatican, back into, like I said, international governments, chambers of commerce. They even infiltrated every area of society, basically, it appears, has been set up around this system of fraud, with the Freemasons being the main drive behind it, with what appears to be a Luciferian or satanic cult at the top of it. And let's face it, they're a secretive society, the opposite of transparency. So the opposite of truth, if you like, isn't it? Because to be completely truthful, you have to be like an open book, and you have to have transparency, full transparency. But instead, it's very clear that our international governments have chosen a very sinister system of crime to exploit and victimize most people. And that it's the Freemasons working with the Church of England and other religious groups. Now, the connection of Archbishop of Canterbury is very significant because that makes a scriptural connection to what is happening, okay, and therefore a prophesied biblical connection in relation to this. And we need to understand that the Flemings are also part of church networks, not only church networks, but I found out that my wife's grandfather and grandmother, this was his ring, because he meant a lot to me, were connected to the Flemings via the church network, the Wessex Partnership. So all of this shows that clearly I've been positioned for a reason, and I've been guided by my moral conscience and by my faith, which has had to be loosely now labelled, but I have no question in my mind that there is a creator, and that moral conscience was given to us by our creator, moral conscience in a rational state of mind, to protect humanity, so to treat others how we would want to be treated. And it's very clear that this whole system is completely against that. It's completely the opposite. It's completely criminal, okay? So it's against fairness, integrity, equality, okay? It is completely facilitating victimization, and it is therefore not of our creator or the moral conscience that has been given to us to protect us all. Now, this is obviously a very incredible time for humanity because, for whatever reason, there's a huge uplift and ascension within consciousness. I felt it. I've never felt closer to our creator as I am now. And we have to consider, okay, that this is a biblical moment in time, and potentially also consider that this is the return of, whether you want to call him Christ, or return of our creator through the moral conscience of humanity, waking up to the deception, to the lies, so that we can stand by what is right to bring about a change on earth, to truth, transparency, trust, equality, fairness, integrity, to all of humanity. Okay, because we're all part of the same family. We're all brothers and sisters. Doesn't matter what color our skin is, where we're from, what culture. We're all equal under the eyes of our creator. Okay, the labeling that's happened by these people has been deliberate to segregate, to separate, to provide risk of conflict, to distract from the problem that they are the real problem. Okay, the system they've got in place is clearly the real problem, and it's over. Okay, because it's fully exposed. Now, over the last couple of months, there's been some key information coming to my attention, and one of those things was, an example was evidence or information coming to me of the Ninth Circle. And I had a dream one day, and I don't normally dream, and it was after I'd had the information of the Ninth Circle, and it was in a McDonald's restaurant, okay? In a McDonald's restaurant, there was Ronald McDonald, the clown with the red shoes, and I felt quite happy one moment, and then I had an overwhelming feeling of deceit and deception come over me. It woke me up, and it was quite startling. And I thought I'd research the Ninth Circle, because it woke me up about 5 or 6 in the morning. I couldn't get back to sleep, and this is very unusual. And I researched the Ninth Circle that had been mentioned, linking the Archbishop to potential child sacrificing, children hunting, linking into the royal families across Europe, and also to the Vatican. And I researched it, typed in the Ninth Circle, and it came up with a clown. Okay, a clown called Art the Clown in a film called The Ninth Circle. This then led to evidence of McDonald's being heavily implicated in all of this. They're now being tied into the artificial intelligence that we're going to come to in a minute. And various bits of information cropped up. So, for example, a company in Glasgow that changed its company name from Ronald McDonald House, as I'm exposing the fraud, to a different company, trying to hide it. Various connections to a graveyard that I ended up going to, a Loch Moy in Scotland, which I'll come to in a minute if I remember. which led to Macintosh families and McDonald's families that then tied in with the evidence. And then the Red Shoe Club tying in with McDonald's. Ronald McDonald's had red shoes. They were also linked to a company called the Red, or a group called the Red Shoe Society, Ronald McDonald Charities. Anyway, all of this came to light, and it was clear that that was a sign for me to show the deception between good and evil working together on society through the governance of our nation. So the Luciferians and the satanic element with the Freemasons, and the church side of things, and the righteousness behind that of loving thy neighbour, thou shalt not kill, etc. So this deceit of good and evil, and the veil of the clown, but behind it, of the veil of the clown being obviously fun and frivolity and joy, and then behind it really being the sinful nature of humanity. And I think a good representation, I think they were telling us within the It movie, those of you who haven't seen it, the clown, it was a killer clown. So that was a very clear sign to me from our creator that was to tell me the deception, and represent that in a symbolic way to me in the clown, and then tying that into McDonald's. So around the 6th of December, key information came to me from others in relation to all of this, and it ended up leading me to a location in Loch Moy in Scotland with some ley line maps that were sent to me. Those of you who don't know what ley lines are, they're energy lines, spiritual energy lines across the globe. And it led to an island called Loch Moy, with an island on the middle of Loch Moy with an obelisk. And obelisks are very Freemasonic. And I went to the location on a key date of the 6th of October, and there was the obelisk. I saw it. And I found the graveyard at the side, and nothing was going on there. Then I was trying to be led to Roslin Chapel, which was tying in with potentially the bloodline of Mary and Jesus, and all of these biblical connections regarding information tying in potentially Edinburgh with Jerusalem, which we'll come to in a minute, being the root Jerusalem, and all of this stuff coming over to me. I mean, really quite incredible information, and obviously all this time there's obviously no doubt I'm being guided by our creator through me realizing the deception as I'm going along. But I was also drawn by these same people to apocalyptic scenarios. Okay, so I'll give you some examples. So one of the ley lines, for example, ended up on an island called not Hope Island. I've forgotten the name of the island, but in Northumberland, Holy Island, tying into the movie set of 28 years later. Then another island of Iona, and potentially linking into the end of the world prophecy by St. Columba. And anyway, I was being directed in this way also to portals. They were trying to get me to look at portals, and in fact it looked like they had changed a Companies House record to Justin Welby's middle name of Portal. Okay, Justin Welby being the Archbishop of Canterbury. So I was being directed to this portal, Stargate, apocalyptic event. I then find out information that suggests these people that have been directing me there were actually part of the deception. So the question obviously is why? Now, after that particular date, which was the 6th of December, I sent a message to these group before I realised they were infiltrated and said, I think we've averted something quite big here. This feels like we've averted a huge event against humanity. And within 3 days, I received a message from Anthony Roberts, who, remember, was the guy that resigned in my company. And it said something similar to, the end is nigh, as in, they would say, in eschatological or apocalyptic biblical events, or something similar. So they wanted me to get back on the apocalyptic train, okay, back into that theory. So the question is why? Because then this exposed them even more. It then just linked back into the Flemings, back into the international government fraud. All of these people then around me that have been trying to give me information then suddenly dropped me, tried throwing me under the bus, and putting loads of comments on to discredit me. And one of these people, Cornerstone, he was going under the name Cornerstone, had claimed that he was Jesus to draw me in initially within that. Not only that, but his wife was claiming to be Jesus. And of course, I've got to have a very open mind with all of this, because 3 years ago, I wouldn't have quite believed what I'm uncovering. So I've had to have an open mind. Anyway, remember apocalyptic events, and have you noticed they've kept in history the apocalyptic element of things, the dinosaurs being wiped out by an asteroid. I'm now getting information suggesting the whole dinosaur theory was deception, part of this deception. I mean, another example, I've mentioned it recently, JP Morgan were involved in the archaeology around Stonehenge, but also the pyramids in Egypt. So we have to consider that everything we've ever been led to believe is a complete deception and lie, because JP Morgan are involved in the actual deceptive financial system that is in place, the criminal system with forgery all the way through. So we can't trust anything that's been said. Okay. So anyway, if we come forward, so I've got to be careful how I say this. The interventions in 2000 and the outbreak, shall we say, in 2019 in Wuhan, and then the interventions that we were led to believe we had to have in 2020. Notice how they deliberately publicised the corruption behind it. So it started with the Partygate scandal, where the members of parliament were having parties within government whilst we were all being locked down. Then you had the deleted WhatsApp messages with high top-level parliamentary officials having deleted their WhatsApp messages. Okay, now remember, they control the media, okay? All mainstream media is involved in this. They even control all social media, and yet they've allowed this information to come out to the public. They then allowed Andrew Bridgen to be publicised going into Parliament and trying to expose the dangers and corruption around that outbreak, okay? But Andrew Bridgen is linked through Companies House, not only to the same companies that started Exporn Manor, but the same companies that started AstraZeneca UK. Okay. Now, this, of course, begs the question, why would Andrew not assist me in exposing the fraud with the interventions, with all of the other stuff that I am talking about? So it's clearly compromised, isn't it? Because there's clearly a connection to all of this. And I'm going to get to my theory soon. So they've allowed the danger of the interventions to be publicised. They've allowed the mismanagement to be publicised. They've allowed apocalyptic events to be publicised. They've allowed people on platforms talking about pole shifts, asteroids, solar flares, nuclear war, climate change, to have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people viewing them, but they're suppressing me and controlling my information to tie in with some sort of narrative they've got. Now, all government officials are ignoring this evidence. 650 members of parliament, all UK police forces, international organisations that I've sent the evidence to are completely ignoring it. Okay, so they are biding their time for something. It's very clear. And the evidence all comes in and links back to Jewish companies, or to Israel, if you like. But they're not, I believe, true Jews. Okay, because there's financial and legal connections to the theory of evolution, which would disprove Jewish connections. Okay, so it's a huge deception, but of course we have to ask why allow this fear-driven induced agenda, multiple though, not just one, multiple agendas, and the exposure of the fraud and the exposure of the interventions. Now we come to Donald Trump. Donald Trump became the president on the 20th of January of America, of the United States, and he's already linked to Exporn Manor Freehold Limited via his Scottish golf clubs. It also links to the Freemasons via a company called Dundas and Wilson, which links very quickly to research surrounding Jimmy Savile, into the royal family, into apparent child abuse and murder, and into the Freemasons very, very quickly. Okay, and that's shown within my documents. So he became the, and I'd already found links to to Elon Musk, to Exporn Manor. Now, actually, if we go back a little bit, so November time, the Archbishop of Canterbury resigned. Okay, the head of the Church of England, the Archbishop of Canterbury, resigned, and that was supposedly over a scandal involving a gentleman called John Smythe, who may have been involved in child abuse. But my research shows that actually the Archbishop of Canterbury links into the same companies, linking into the Freemasons again, also into nuclear weapons companies and international drone management via the United Nations, okay, via Justin Welby research, okay, drones, nuclear weapons, fraud, child trafficking, deception, crime against humanity, apocalyptic events, all coming out. Of course, more recently, we've now seen them exposing more evidence of child abuse, okay, so there's lots of people being prosecuted for it. You've got the P. Diddy scandal, all of these scandals coming out, the Jeffrey Epstein list, etc., okay. They're allowing that to come out to the public. Remember this, all this evil about the system, they're allowing that to come out, and they're allowing apocalyptic events, and they're allowing it to be because they've not silenced me, so they're allowing my evidence, but they're controlling it through the social media to come out and appearing to use my evidence to assist them in the timing of something. And this is where the theory comes in. So Donald Trump, so not only did you have the Archbishop of Canterbury resign, you then had the drones everywhere, okay? This now brings in the ability for the apocalyptic events, but also an alien invasion, a fake alien invasion to be publicised. So you have a range of options to choose from now in relation to their ultimate biblical deception. Now, after the drones came out around the world, they were trying to show clips of orbs and potential alien beings, etc., and talk of military aircraft having fights with them in the sky. I mean, it's laughable, isn't it? So all of this is coming out, and then Donald Trump becomes the president, okay, on the 20th. On the 21st of January, he announces the Stargate Project Limited, and he has three persons there from three different organizations, one of them being Oracle, one of them being an AI company. And the Stargate Project is, as they mention, to do with mRNA. Okay, so the interventions, again, but linking in with artificial intelligence and the detection of cancer. Now, those three companies I've researched, the three high-tech guys there, and all of them go straight back into the fraud. One of them links straight back to a company called Vistra, which links back to Exmoor Manor Freehold Limited and the Fleming family, via that, of course. So the Stargate Project, I then get information fed to me that suggests the Stargate Project, and this is, you have to have an open mind with this, suggesting that it somehow connects to the transference of conscience to another location through a portal, through a Stargate, okay, in the event of an apocalyptic event to save humanity. Transference of conscience. Of course, pinch of salt, this information, okay, but all of the stuff within Companies House is there, it's verifiable. So I get this information coming in. I also get information tying into me personally. So, for example, the Stargate movie came out in 1994 on my birthday. There was also mention of the Star Wars movie being George Lucas having had the idea of that movie via telepathy, okay, which then ties into, if you like, an emergence of consciousness and communication via conscience, okay, which is what we'd already talked about. That film came out in 1977, the year I was born. Okay, the same year that 20,000 documents were declassified in relation to MK Ultra. The research from MK Ultra leads to my dad's adoptive family in Kent. Okay, the research from that then links to my wife's family in Dorset. Okay, where there had been no connections that I was aware of. I just transferred down there and ended up marrying into a family that had connections. Not only that, but my wife's family had connections, like I've said, to the church, where the Flemings are connected, and also multiple people within my wife's family had connections through to Exmoor Manor as well. And I was feeding information to my wife's family all of the time, and it was getting fed back, obviously, to the people involved. So, now, there's far too much information for this to all be coincidence, and it's very clear that the evidence has been left for the right person to expose all of this at the right time. And it appears as though I am that person. But it is not going how, if it was a plan that they wanted, it's not how they wanted it to happen, because through the exposure, people are being named as being involved in child trafficking and abuse, etc., etc. So then you've got to say, well, they couldn't have done that deliberately, because why would they want faces being put to names and exposing themselves in that way? So then you've got to come back to, it must be a divine intervention. I mean, I've had so many signs. There's so many things I could tell you. Looking through the evidence for the World Trade Center disaster, thinking about, you know, the term in the Bible of fire and brimstone. Thinking, you know, to my father, what's this all about, fire and brimstone? Turning to the very next page on Companies House, and there was the word brimstone. I mean, I'd never seen that word anywhere. It was brimstone. It was within an address of a company called D&D Law Agency. So there's all these things and so much more I could tell you. And the only explanation I can come to is that it's a divine intervention through myself and others. I appear to be the only one in the world producing this evidence and calling for the right measures of truth, transparency, and trust through a financial system to protect humanity and the children. Nobody else is calling for that. Nobody. Now, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't you want a transparent financial system so that we can safeguard and protect the children? Okay, it's the most innocent. They're the most innocent of all. And we can have no fear when it comes to this suffering of children. We all have to drop our fear and we have to save the children, no matter what the risk to us. Now, this is where the divine intervention comes in, because it's the ultimate decision. Do you raise above your fear and your selfishness to save the children, or do you carry on being selfishness and submit to a criminal system and allow the children to suffer and not have faith in your Creator? So, the Stargate project. Now, when you research the Stargate companies on Companies House, you put Stargate and search it. There's a company that comes up that dissolved a few days before Donald Trump became the president. And within that company, there's 2 directors. One of them links to a company, 6 companies. One of them is called the Mothership Limited. Bearing in mind, you've got the drones, you've got the narrative setting up an alien invasion. I'd also had information from another source on a live stream that there was an alien ship on its way to Earth and it would get here in around 7 years' time. Okay, well, that's 2032. So there was the Mothership company in there. I suspect that was positioned deliberately there for me to expose it, to get me to fall for the deception of an apocalyptic event, potentially. Within the other director, it then linked immediately to the research I'd just done on the Nova Music Festivals, which is the Nova Music Festival is where the attack happened on the 7th October 2023 in Israel. I'd already tied that in to the evidence back into Export Manor Freehold Limited, back into the international fraud, all of the same companies. It's very clear in my mind that that was a staged event. And that happened as I was continuing to expose the fraud. And various things have happened as I've continued to expose the fraud, which suggests they started to realise, oh dear, let's trigger this plan of the ultimate biblical deception against humanity, because now our system is starting to be exposed by this person. And maybe they know something about me I don't. I don't know who I am in this. I really don't know. But I do know that my evidence is absolutely essential for changing humanity and bringing a new earth to everybody of truth, transparency, and trust, etc. So, yeah, the other director then linked immediately in to the Nova Music Festival research that I'd already done within the Stargate project, the Stargate company. Okay? Now, there's no coincidence in all of this. Okay, so what it appears they're going to do, you imagine, what I think they're going to do is set up the ultimate biblical deception against humanity to allow them to choose between wrong and right, but it be through deception. Now, they've already exposed the corruption now within the system, and they're allowing it to come out even more now, aren't they? I'm being allowed to expose it. The evil system, it is evil because it's, whether it's true that it's happening or not, there's overwhelming evidence to suggest that children are suffering as a result of this system. And of course it would facilitate child trafficking because of the money laundering facility through linked to Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, etc., who are very key into this, very key in relation to all of this. And they've already exposed the intervention corruption. So what this means is they're going to get to a point where they're going to be able to say, right, we have this intervention that could save you from an apocalyptic event. Now, of course, even if you don't believe in the Creator, this puts you in a moral conscience dilemma. Do I take the selfish option and the wrong option of having another intervention to save myself? Or do I have faith and trust in this event? Because I cannot commit to the suffering of children and face whatever that event may be by our Creator. That's my theory. There's a bit more to it. So we talked about the Cray twins earlier. Let's go back to, I was contacted in May 2024. And I didn't get around to looking into the evidence that was provided by that person. It's only more recently that I've done that. And that ties in to the potential murder of the real heirs to the throne in early 1960s, late 1950s, which then connects to Walt Disney via Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and then potentially ties in to the Krays being involved in that. Okay, it's mind-blowing, I know. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I'm getting the evidence together. I haven't got it here at the moment, but I need to get this out because of Donald Trump's rhetoric recently. So, and just to support this a little bit, so a few months ago, Brian Harvey and I had contact. If you don't know who Brian Harvey is, he's a former band member of E17, and I remember them when I was growing up very well. Quite like the music, actually. Brian, you had a great voice. And we had a long conversation, and he said he almost died in the World Trade Center disaster. Someone was trying to convince him to have breakfast in the building the day before it happened. They were also, he said, about a car accident in 2005, and that turned him to Christ. He also mentioned about a party that he went to. Now, this is important. Went to a party, I think it was in the 1990s. I think it was actually 1993 or 1994, he said, which is interesting, bearing in mind what we just said about the Stargate movie. He was at this party. Ghislaine Maxwell was there, and a guy called John Harris leant over to him and said, do you know that Edinburgh is the real Jerusalem? Okay, and it's all a deception. And he also had a necklace around his neck, and he said, this is what the Stone of Destiny is in this necklace. Okay, now the Stone of Destiny is very important with what I've been talking about with the potential murder of the real heirs to the throne. Okay, because the Stone of Destiny, according to research, needs to be used for a genuine coronation of a king and queen. When you look at the research of the Stone of Destiny, it went missing from Westminster Abbey, I think, in 1951. And there was a suggestion that it may have been stolen and a fake stone replaced to use it. And funny enough, on the news, came out recently, which is no excuse, because as I'm releasing evidence and information, they're slowly releasing evidence through mainstream media about what I'm saying. Okay, there's no coincidence to it. And they mentioned that the stone maybe broke into, I think they said 37, 38 pieces. So, but Brian Harvey also said to me, and I hadn't even mentioned the Kray twins. Okay, I hadn't mentioned it to anyone at this point other than months earlier to my sister, because of my dad's adopted brothers had mentioned it previously, and there was a photograph in a shop in London that's tied into it. Anyway, Brian Harvey said, oh, also, I was in a shop in Walthamstow in a tattooist, and on the wall was a picture of the Kray twins, and I said to the tattooist, do you know the Kray twins? He said, yeah. He said, no, you don't. I said, yeah, I do. Right, okay, I'll take you to meet them. So he drove another time to Kent. Bearing in mind I'm from Kent, okay, and the connections I've said about with the Kray twins, drove to Kent and met Reggie Kray. Okay, and there was also a serial killer, I can't remember the name of him, in that location as well. Now, since then, I've found multiple connections to the Kray twins in Kent, multiple connections, and there are connections being made to potential murders in Blackpool, links to the royal family, etc., etc. Now, this ties in with other evidence that I've got, linking into the Archbishop of Canterbury again, back into JP Morgan and into the Fleming company. And in fact, the same guy, I can't remember his name, the same person did the autobiography for Ian Fleming, also did the autobiography for the Kray twins. So what I'm saying to you in all of this is there's a lot more. I could be here for hours. I've clearly been positioned, I believe, by our creator. There's nothing special about me, but I've been positioned to be able to present this evidence at this time, and I believe it is only to avert whatever these criminal organisations are going to try and bring about. And of course, if they are trying to bring about and time a prophecy themselves, then they're not gods. They can't do that. It's satanic. Okay? Only our creator can bring about prophecy. And we have to consider, one thing I didn't mention, the evidence that before World War One, German companies set up educational establishments and book companies, publishing companies, and media companies right around the world, linking into Robert Maxwell, okay, which gave them the ability to completely change and rewrite history to fit the narrative of all of this, okay? And it all ties in with Israel. So it is not of moral conscience, if you like. Everything that's been put in place is deceit, allows the ability for suffering, victimization, harm, exploitation, all of the things that are against our creator or the moral conscience in a rational state of mind that is there by our creator to protect us all, I believe. If you don't believe in a creator, then you must know that it's there for some reason so that you treat others how you want to be treated. Well, they've gone far from that. They have gone far from that, and it is not of our creator. Unless, of course, the creator is not good. But we know that's not the case because we have the moral conscience, okay, within us when we're in a rational state of mind. Generally, most of us, rational state of mind, we treat others how we want to be treated. Unless some of us who've had a drink, or we've taken substances that we shouldn't, or we're suffering from stress or mental health, etc. But all of those things have been imposed on us by this system to create the irrationality which brings about the not treating others how we want to be treated. You see, it's all not of our creator. So we must get back to that as the foundation, moral conscience. All of us, we're all brothers and sisters. If we don't turn this around and realize the deception, then you're going to be deceived into a situation of horrendous future. Now, what will happen if I'm right? Where does transhumanism come in with this? Well, hopefully you're aware of Elon Musk and the Neuralink, okay, the microchip in the brain, which then has the ability to send false artificial intelligence signals to your brain, potentially allowing control of you. Now, remember, you've got the artificial intelligence is being ramped up now, isn't it? The UK government has just said it's going to be pushing it. We've got the Stargate project pushing it, $500 billion going into the Stargate project. Artificial intelligence. Look at the word, artificial. Not of our creator. Therefore, not of moral conscience in a rational state of mind, because it's been created by those who have implemented a system not of moral conscience, of deceit, of suffering. The opposite, satanic. Okay? Now, the masks that we have going up, I suspect they're going to link in with all of this. And what does it say in one of the revelations within the Bible? Okay, well, it says, I don't know the exact words, but my understanding is it says that sinners will seek death and not be able to find it. Well, how do you recreate that if mankind wanted to? They trap your conscience in a body that you can't control. How would you do that? With transhumanism. Okay? Hell on earth. Being trapped in a body, wanting to die, not being able to because you can't control your body to make that decision. Because your free will is taken away. Now, I've talked a lot. It's a lot to take on. I've got evidence of all of this. I'm not saying any of this without evidence to support all of it. I'm trying to get that together, but I need to get this out today. You have all been deceived. All of you. Even those involved in this fraud. Okay? You may be thinking you're waiting for a man to come down on a cloud to come and save you. And you may think that you have to create a nuclear war for that. Or you have to create a huge apocalyptic event for that to happen. But what if you're wrong? What if it's already here? Through the conscience. Now, someone's recently said to me who knows the Bible inside out, they said, well, actually, it doesn't say how the return will come, other than it will potentially involve clouds. Well, where's all this evidence and information coming from? The internet, the cloud, Company's House, and all of the other stuff people are pulling together. The cloud. It's here. I believe it's here through our conscience. Okay? So we've all been deceived. It's very clear. The only right way to now resolve this, all of you involved in this, is to come out and shout the truth of what you've been part of. It's the only way you can be saved. And then repent and work together collectively to bring about a future for our children, to safeguard humanity, protect children. You've chosen crime, deception, when you should have chosen transparency, truth, trust, and if necessary, incentivize choice to manage people, not through crime and victimization. Everyone, realize the deceit. Stand up to this criminal system now. Non-compliance. You have to step away from your fear for the children. Non-compliance. Do not comply to this criminal evil system anymore. Now, I'm being suppressed. They're not going to let this get out to enough people. So you need to get this out. Not go knocking on doors, go posting up leaflets, go doing everything you can and call for a complete shutdown of the system. Now, I'm looking at the 15th of March, 2025. That's the date I'm aiming for. Other people are suggesting other dates. Somebody had suggested that date. I've gone along with that date because they had a good following. So 15th of March 2024, the latest. We need to down our tools. We need to stop paying everything. And we need to demand safeguarding for the children and for humanity. And bring back truth, transparency and trust before it is too late. The removal of harmful technology. The safeguarding of our water, of our food, of our air, of our children, the most important. Everyone, rally behind me, I urge you, because if you do not do that soon, then the deceit will be vast and you may not see it. You may not see it. This system of fraud is the key. Now, I know I'm right, and I'll give you an example. I found out the evidence via the Doomsday Clock research. Some of you may have seen it. I went into a live stream and publicised that information that I found via the research of the Doomsday Clock. A countdown to Doomsday, supposedly. But we know they love their inversions. Okay? But that led to a company of 2032 year. So I then said, I suspect there'll be an apocalyptic deception in 2032, possibly an asteroid. Within 2 days, all over the headlines, an asteroid may strike the Earth, 2032. Now, the two timelines that appear to be going on at the moment. One being an event that was triggered in 2018 that I haven't publicised, meaning we're now at the end of the 7-year tribulation. Another one triggering now, 2025, starting the 7-year tribulation, ending in 2032. I suspect they're going to use one of those 2 dates, I suspect, in relation to this ultimate deception. So you are out of time. You need to get behind this now. I do not work for the Freemasons. I have no connection to the Freemasons. I wear a ring that was someone who I cared about very much. They were a Freemason. They were also part of a church network. Okay? And I cared about this person. That's the reason I wear this. It's nothing to do with Freemasonry. Freemasons are massively involved. They're evil. They're satanic. They're linked through the Company's House records. They need to be gone. Clearly. Okay? I wouldn't say that if I was a Freemason. So everybody, I urge you, whilst you still can, for the sake of yourselves and your children, get behind this evidence. Rally together. Unite collectively. Okay? And let's end this. Let's end this now. Whilst we can, I urge you. This world is an incredible place. We need to save it, and it's not just the humans. There's billions of other life forms that we have to think about here. We've been given a privileged position to look after out this planet and those life forms, all right? We cannot rely on these people. They need to be gone. We can't trust them anymore, all right? And that's why I've got an 11-point measure. One of them is stage resignation of all of them that have been involved in this fraud since it's been exposed and have not resigned. Complete transparent taxation system so the public can be the auditors. Full verification of any company corporations, removal of any harmful technology, no sexualization of children, no reduction in the age of sexual consent. Very serious consequences for anyone in positions of leadership to make decisions for themselves or affiliated decisions. It has to be for the masses and for the environment. Several other things. Get behind me, please. I urge you. Thank you so much for listening. I know this is a long video. I think it's important to get it out. Thank you. And I feel everything's going to be okay. I really do. Don't fear this. That's important. Do not fear. Stand in truth and stand up together and unite against this. Thanks very much.